This is the smallest anamorphic lens for full frame. So, SIRUI has just sent me their Saturn anamorphic kit of lenses, the 35, 50, and 75. They're 1.6 times squeeze, t2.9, and because how compact they are, I think they'll be a perfect pair with the LUMIX S9. Man, the build quality on this is pretty good for such a small little lens. It's so small. 75 and 50. Wow, these are actually so good for gimbal work as well. They're almost the same size and very similar weight as well, which is fantastic when you're switching out the lenses on a gimbal. We have the gear rings in the same position as well. That's really good. Honestly, it's so crazy how small these lenses are, and these will pair perfectly with the LUMIX S9. So let's try it. So here it is, the LUMIX S9. If you guys don't know, this is basically an S5 II packed into a tiny little body. It's of course missing some features, but for the majority of features that I personally use, like 6K open gates, as well as image stabilization, they're all built into this camera. So if you're wondering why I chose L-mount for anamorphic lenses, it's because LUMIX cameras have image stabilization that's specifically designed for anamorphic lenses as well. So you can customize the squeeze factor in the settings, set it to 1.5 times. Unfortunately, there's no 1.6 times squeeze for stabilization, but 1.5 times is the closest you can get. But I still found that 1.5 on a 1.6 lens still does work pretty well. And of course, who wouldn't want to use such a tiny, cute little camera with the tiniest anamorphic lenses? So let's have a look. Man, this is so tiny. If you just have a look at that, that just looks like a normal, camera lens setup, but this is actually anamorphic. This is pretty insane, especially when paired with the LUMIX S9, which also, apart from the image stabilization for anamorphic, it also has a D-squeeze for anamorphic built into it. So basically you won't need any additional accessories. You can just go out and shoot like this. All right, just for comparison, I do have my Venus set of lenses, the 35, 75, and 150, and just have a look how chunky this lens is. It's still a very nice glass, but in comparison, this is the 35 Saturn and this is the 35 Venus. They're both 1.6 times squeeze. They're both 35mm, they're both T2.9. So spec-wise and in theory, they should look very similar. Okay, this is even crazier. This is the 75mm Saturn lens, and this is the 75 Venus. Like the size difference and even the weight difference in my hand, like I really want to put this down, that is quite heavy. I mean, it's a great lens as well. And obviously the specs also match, which is pretty insane. I don't know how they managed to make it so small, if there were any sacrifices. I'll find out when I do a test with these new lenses, but man, just spec-wise, they're the same, which is just insane to see such a small lens in such a small package. And I was filming a music video about a year ago in Japan, and I actually brought the Venus lenses with me to film those music videos. And you can imagine if you have this on a gimbal and then you change to this on a gimbal, how much of a weight difference you have, just like front weight on the gimbal. So, every time you change the lens, it takes a bit of rebalancing. So that's just one thing. Another thing is just the weight itself, like how much lighter and more portable these new lenses are. It's, pretty insane, especially the 75. It's a crazy, crazy difference. And shooting a music video in Japan in the middle of the heat, I mean, the images look fantastic out of this beast, but man, the size of this, running with this on a gimbal in Japan in super hot weather is definitely the go-to rather than this heavy thing. So if I was redoing those music videos now, I would totally travel with this setup to Japan instead of taking this massive kit. This is still a fantastic lens kit, and if you want to impress your client with how big your lenses are, these are the ones to go for. But if you want to travel light and film a music video in Japan or do some travel content that is anamorphic, I think these lenses would actually be quite cool. I do wish they made them in PL mount because I try to get my lenses, especially the anamorphic ones, in PL mount if I can, whenever I can. Unfortunately, they don't. It is quite a tiny lens, so I guess that's why. Maybe these lenses could have been a PL mount, and it would have been great because then you can swap them out and take them out to another camera. For example, put on my FX6, put it on my LUMIX cameras. But unfortunately, you have to pick a mount, so you have to choose a Sony E mount or an L mount, or I don't know what else they have. But apart from that, you can also choose the colors. So these are interesting because these are neutral flares. The Venus lenses I had, they're blue flares, which look more stylized, more sci-fi. The neutral flares basically just take the source of the light, the color of the source of the light, and they kind of make the flares out of those. So we'll see how they work. You know, these lenses do have some limitations. For example, they do have pincushion distortion rather than barrel distortion. So it's not as pleasing as, for example, the Blazar lenses, which I really love. But you know, for the price and also the size is super appealing. And pincushion distortion, you can fix it in post a little bit. So there's ways to go around this. But I think for traveling content, man, I can't wait to use them. Now, who doesn't love free stuff, right? Especially when it's rad and designed for your camera rigs. I'm super excited to announce the launch of my new brand, ALLRAD, bringing you spicy rad HDMI cables and magic arms to make your setup just as rad as the shot you capture. And to celebrate, we're doing something special. Grab any item from the store and you'll get a free magic arm worth $35 to go with it. Just choose your color, toss it in your cart, and use the code ALLRADBIRD at checkout. Hit the link down below to get started on your ALLRAD journey. One inconsistency that I can see so far across these lenses is that the 50 and the 75 both have a 62 front filter thread, but the 35mm does have a 58. So they do include a screw-on adapter, but it's just one thing you need to think about and not to forget that little adapter to screw on your filters on the front. So just from testing it out here with these lenses, I can see like the close focus distance is obviously not that great. So it's about 1 meter before I can get my close focus. So obviously we're gonna be moving to using diopters, which is, you know, a case with most of the anamorphic lenses. So these things right here, they basically just are different strengths of a magnifying glass. There's actually one feature I wish LUMIX has added for a LUMIX line of cameras, and that is de-squeeze for anamorphic in photo mode. And I know there's plenty of people asking for it, Richard Wong and a bunch of LUMIX creators hoping to have a photo mode for anamorphic. But yeah, hopefully one day, LUMIX, knock knock, hopefully you're watching this. But for video, I feel like, I mean, just handheld wise and like holding this in hand, it feels really good. All right, so I'm gonna take these lenses out for a spin together with my LUMIX S9, super tiny compact package. Let's see how they work, and I'll see you guys next time.